Sara Wiseman is one of the most accurate and unpretentious psychics I've ever met. With a foot in the real world and another in the realm of infinite possibility, Sara leads everyday people to discover their divinity and break through issues they can't seem to change on their own. With 2 books out and 1 on the way, Sara gets real about all the rejections she received and the persistence it took to follow in her own path. I'm Erin Donley, and this is Reveal What's Real. Sara, thank you so much for being on Reveal What's Real.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So you're the author of 3 books. This is one of them, Writing the Divine.
That's right. That's my first book, yeah.
And the next one is your psychic child.
And then upcoming is The Intuitive Path, which may have a different title at the point it's published, but that's coming in 2012.
And it's submitted already, huh?
Yep, it's all in the works.
So you're cranking out these books.
Yes, I am. That's true. That's
Nice.
true.
The intuition is the common theme of all of these.
Yeah, what I work in is, I would call it the merging of spirituality and intuition, so that spirituality is one path and intuition is the other, but if you head along either of those paths long enough, you end up at the same place.
At the same
Yeah,
point.
it's kind of interesting that way.
You're an author, you're a psychic, intuitive. Do you like one of those titles more?
I don't mind which title it's words, but a certain type of person likes the word psychic, a certain type of person likes the word intuitive. Call me whichever you prefer.
How do you introduce yourself to strangers?
It depends. Like, I see you have your Pittsburgh mug there, and if I were to introduce myself to a Steelers fan, I'd probably just say I'm an author. I probably would just leave the whole psychic intuition part out. But if, you tend to know how people are going to respond, and so I just usually say I'm an intuitive, something like that. Back when I was growing up, we didn't really have these terms readily available. I was called more creative, or you have a good imagination, was what my parents always told me. So all these things that happened, they were never given the validation of, it's intuitive. It was all imagination.
Yeah.
So, but a series of events happened. I had a near-death experience in 2000. In 2000, shortly after my father died, I was with him near his death. I got divorced, and then right after that was happening, 2004, I had the experience of a spirit guide coming into my home. And at that point, I didn't even know. I was very much the Catholic soccer mom. I didn't know what a spirit guide was, no idea. And so that kind of happened in 2004. And I really rejected it and said, I don't want any part of this after a little bit of it. And then 2008, it's sort of like the divine gave me the time I needed to sort of adjust to the idea. And 2008, I was holding a book by Doreen Virtue in my hand, and I heard very loudly, we want you to write this. We want you to write this using writing. And I just said yes, but then I also said I have no idea, A, who you are,
Right.
or B, what you mean. So I said, you'll have to tell me what you want me to write. And I sat down the next day, and that's when all of the channeled spiritual messages of the first book came. And then it was even more journey, because as I guess I call it opening or awakening to a new life, and then the old life suddenly doesn't work for you very well anymore.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the hard part of it all.
Yeah.
Sounds good on paper, but the reality is there's lots of shifts and changes.
And what does your intuition look or feel like? Do you receive specific guidance from your guides, or is it a random voice? What does it feel like?
I teach intuition a lot, and it's so subtle. It's like you're listening to, or like you're listening to a little piece of music in your head, or when you read a good fiction book, you often go on a journey of your imagination. It's kind of like those little pictures that come in your head, very similar to imagination, or to so sometimes I see clear, palpable, dense, like you and me, in front of me, spirit guides, but sometimes they just appear in my mind's eye, or I hear their messaging in my mind's ear. So I think when I teach intuition, that's one thing I talk about, is that everyone's expectations are like, hello, I'm your spirit guide, you know, what would, and it's not, it's very subtle. And so when people are very distracted in their lives, running around from here to this, to this, to this, they forget how to listen, or they forget how to see, and it's just about waking that up again. And
Right. It could be happening already, and they just don't know how to recognize it.
it certainly is happening even at this moment. Like, I sense that there's guides here, and they're actually pretty interested, like, what's going on? How can we use this? But they're subtle, you know. And I do see the departed, but not, I wouldn't say that's my specialty. I see them when they choose to present themselves. I never know when that's going to happen or not.
So do you have to consciously turn off your intuition sometimes?
Yeah, part of, so I mentioned, you know, part of it, it's really good and nice to have this ability, but it's also kind of difficult, because the sensitivity to everything that's happening all at once means you're always getting barraged with it. And so yesterday I was walking in the park, and I walked by a playground, and there's this mom just screaming at her kid, and I just had the whole visual of, you know, what goes on in that household, and it's very depressing and very sad to see that kind of thing. So when I'm out in public, I just kind of like, I dial it down, is how I would say. I just, no thank you.
Now, did you have to learn the hard way how to do that? Like, did you had sensed something, and did you want to go and do something about it? Did you sometimes like give unsolicited advice, or say,
Yeah.
I see something that you need to know about? Or?
Yeah, I in fact, actually, before I knew what this all was about, I would famously kind of put my foot in my mouth advising people. That didn't go over very well. But then, now that I realize what it is, I'm really of the mind that each person's, you know, on their own path, and if they ask me for advice or help, I'm happy to. But otherwise, it's not my place to do that. It's just not. Yeah.
So, you know, you and I worked together for about 6 months. I did your email mentoring program. And there was just something about you that I felt like I could tell you all of my deepest, darkest secrets. And I had a lot.
I posted those. No, just kidding. Just kidding. Just a joke. Kidding. Okay.
So, I'm not afraid.
No.
So I sense that you're able to hold the tough parts of people's lives pretty well. You must hear a lot of really intimate, raunchy, like, whoa kind of stuff. So when you're working with people and you want to give them feedback, and you realize the severity of like how they're coming to you for some really big advice, how do you know that you're right?
Yeah, so a lot of times, so say in the e-mentoring, someone will email, you know, their situation and looking for advice, and it's interesting, because a lot of times Sarah, with my ego, will have an immediate, like, I know what they should do, da-da-da-da, but I don't write that. I wait instead, and then often I'll say, let me mull your question over, and I give myself some space, and then I just, you know, I'm just kind of walking around, like, doing the dishes, or, you know, folding laundry, because I work at home, or I go into meditation, and I just sort of allow the correct non-Sarah ego response to come. And it's all about taking them to maybe even their situation that they have a question about. Say they had a bunch of questions about, you know, a relationship, and maybe the information from the divine that comes is like, the relationship isn't even the issue, it's about, you know, their mother or their father, or some past wound they have that needs to get cleared, or something. I'm not sure, every situation is different, but so the divine kind of directs me to, like, where is their heart going to open best next, and that's how I just go with that.
And then just offering that advice and getting good feedback has given you the confidence to know that this is useful and maybe real, or?
Yeah, I guess I feel like, one, if I go to an intuitive, I take my responsibility of, no matter what they say, like if Erin, you were the intuitive saying to me, Sarah, you need to get a Toyota Prius or Prius. Like, okay, awesome, but how am I going to fit, my kids in there? So, so it's like I take your information and then I have responsibility to look at it for myself, and I would expect my clients need to do that too. It's like, it's your life. I'm just meant to enlighten and help if I can, and if it's not resonating with you, then check out why and make your own choices. Because everyone has this ability to get this information. It's not just me or the ones that are called intuitive. Everyone can go into light trance meditation and gather this themselves. So, if you don't like what I have to say, then check in with your own connection to the universe there. Yeah.
Is it hard for you to sometimes detach from wanting results from people, especially in your email mentoring program where you get to work with people over the course of a month or several months? Are you sometimes like wanting to say, like, God, when are you going to learn your lesson here? I mean, how do you?
Well, yeah. See, but that's not mine to say, because I'm just like a human being. I have my own faults, that's for sure. Oh, here's my list of my faults.
We'll talk about that later too.
Yeah. So it's I'm just here to help them take their next step, and some people get really far, and some people just take a small step, and it's all.
And you're comfortable with that.
Yeah.
So, like you said, you were a Catholic soccer mom for a long time, and now you're a prominent name in the New Age industry. So, I mean, that's a big leap. Now that you're in this new field, what do you find maybe off-putting about the New Age industry? In what ways don't you fit in?
Right. Very much because I did not come up through the normal belief system ranks. I find that a lot of the belief systems that are either older belief systems that we've already moved past. Like say, I don't even want to mention anything in particular because some things work for some people, but it seems like a lot of people have a lot of they need to believe it's a certain way, like A and B and C all follow in a line perfectly, and really I don't believe that's how it works. Really, it's just we're in the universe and we're energy and we're one, and everything just flows in that way. So you don't really need props or tools or other things. You just do it. You certainly don't need a giant, $4,000 program to help you learn how to meditate. Those kinds of things. I dislike the parts of the New Age industry that manipulate people into feeling disempowered. We all can do this stuff ourselves. Nobody needs a middleman. I don't consider myself any kind of middleman. I just show what I show, and then you guys, you take it from here. And I guess it's the disempowering piece. I don't like it when one person says, I have the answers.
Yes.
Nobody has the answers. There's no answer.
No, there are tons of paths up the mountain.
Yeah, tons of paths.
Yeah. So, you're in the public eye a lot now. And so what kind of insecurities have popped up for you around that?
Well, I think I do. I love being with people for about maybe 8 hours, and then at that mark, something just fizzles out in me, and I need to go crawl away into a cave and recover. And so it's been a lot of energy management, especially if I go to a bigger event where there's lots of people, and like person one's coming, and then person two, and that's really great. I'm very buzzing up there in high vibration, but at a certain point, I get a little tired. So I need to do things like just keep a power bar handy, stay hydrated, give myself a break, that kind of thing. Yeah. And after a big event, when I started, after I would teach a workshop, I would literally the next day go home and just like be laying on the sofa in a zombie-like state for 2 days. And now it's I don't have that need anymore. I can just have just a slow day after a big event.
Yeah, that's really nice to hear, because I think a lot of people who start stepping out to do their work, their work that's really dear to them and close to their heart, it is physically and mentally and emotionally exhausting, even though it's fulfilling.
Yeah.
And so there is recovery time there, and I think people sometimes don't allow that, or they think it's odd that they need it.
Yeah, and you do really need it. It's just you put all that energy out into being with others, and then you need to regroup with yourself.
Who do you see for help? You know,
I wish I had that answer. So I'm really blessed that I have my partner who's this amazing healer. He's worked with a lot of really big names, and so like he worked with Michael Jackson and the Grateful Dead, and so he doesn't do this anymore, but he's sort of seen it all, and so my little workshop issues are pretty small potatoes compared to
Michael's.
Michael Jackson on tour. So,
and in what way did he help them?
he was like Michael Jackson's like guru, chiropractor, healer. So he was sort of like that's what he did in Beverly Hills. But so he's been with people that really, really are dealing with massive crowd energy, and so he's just a big help. He's just a big help in that way. And then I really like. As mentors, I really like Penny Pierce, who's an author, and Sophie Burnham, and I really resonate with what they're doing and the way they're talking about intuition. I really like them. Yeah.
Do you ever get psychic readings?
Yeah, I have. There's a couple of people. Deborah Lynn Katz is an author, and Penny Pierce, and mostly those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this flows nicely into my next question, because I think all of us have things that we can't see for ourselves, and that's what you help other people with. And so I love that you get this guidance yourself, and so something about you that I think is really interesting is that you have 30 years experience in business and marketing, and you're sharp as a whip when it comes to this stuff. And so I love that you bring that piece to others, but I'm wondering, in your personal work, in your work marketing yourself, what are some of your blind spots? What are you unable to see for yourself?
Yeah, it's interesting because I know everything that I should be doing in my own marketing of my platform and all this, and really I'm not very interested in doing it. It's like there's the spiritual people side of the work that's very connected that I love, and there's the writing. And then when it just gets to the marketing, it just seems so ego-based or computer-based, like Twitter, like no thank you. And I just struggle, like I should be doing this and I don't want to. And I did 150 events last year.
What?
I know, and it wasn't all like, some of it was radio, but I just thought that's too much. That's too much for me. I need to just keep myself as a person whole in order to do the work. And if some of the marketing has to slide, it's got to slide.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Well, and you said something to me one day that I never forgot. Because I asked you, what is it like, being the author of 3 books, you're really getting your name out there. And you said, just because the treadmill is right in front of me doesn't mean I need to get on it. And that was so freeing. And I really want people to hear that, because you don't have to do Twitter if you don't like it.
Yes, that's right.
And so, and you even said, I could travel around the country or internationally at this point, but I just want to stay in the Pacific Northwest, maybe go down to California. And it works for you.
Yeah. If you do what's your, and this isn't just for books, it's for anything. If you do what your authentic core self is designed to do and wants to do, you're gonna be doing great. If you're doing things because you think you should, or because you have fear that if you don't do them things will go badly, that's where things start to So I don't have at the beginning I had these plans and pages like I'm gonna do this and do this, and I don't even have a plan now. I just sort of every day go, okay, where's the energy going? And okay, I need to make this email to this person. I need to connect with this person. And if something comes into my email or I get a phone call, okay, does this follow in what my direction is? And that's the only way I do it. Yeah.
So we're in this heavy manifesting culture right now, where everyone's just making their dreams come true. What are the missing pieces that you're seeing in that you notice in clients?
Yeah. I think people start manifesting a step, like it seems like there's a couple different steps to manifesting, and most people start at the second step. And I would see the steps as you ask for guidance based on that. That's step one. Based on that, step two would be you request what you want to have happen. And then step three would be you take action to make this energy flow. And there's also an emotional energy part to this that might come before that. But what I think happens is that people skip this asking for guidance step. They just go into, I want this, I want this, I want this, and they ask for it. Whereas in reality, maybe somebody wants to move to California, say, I manifest, I move to California. When if they've just taken that time initially to ask for guidance from the divine, maybe the divine would be saying, New Mexico, or something. And so here they're manifesting this thing in this direction that's completely wrong. And then the other thing people do is you have to have the energy of, you have to have the divine energy, like a blissed out state, in order to make the energy kind of into manifesting. And a lot of people are like, I want this, and it's very, tightened down and fear-based, and you just got to raise your vibration in order to make things really happen. So, yeah.
Makes sense. I'd love to shift to motherhood, because you have, 4 children?
Yeah.
That's a lot these days.
It's a lot, any day. Yeah.
So, and they're all, under 20?
Well, I have a stepson who's 28, and then I have 11, 15, and 20-year-old. And the 20-year-old's at school, so 2 at home right now.
So what's it like for them to have a psychic mom? Do they seem to ask for advice more than your average teenager because they know they could maybe have a competitive edge?
Run away.
Or are they running away?
Yeah, they're not so much into it. It's funny because they're all psychic. I talked about that in my second book, Your Psychic Child. They're all psychic, and they don't want anyone to have this understanding about them. It is just not, now we are in the Justin Bieber cell phone stage, not for the little one. Not interested. And yet, I can do things like, one of them will be outside, and I'll just think, time to come in. Did you call me? And it's like, there's this immediate telepathy and other things that they can do really, really clearly. So, but in the book I talked about that there's kind of this window for littler kids, maybe from about 3 to about 9, where you can work with them. And then after that, once they hit that preteen and once they hit that teenager, you just got to let them do their thing. And if they come back to it later, awesome. If they don't, they don't. But it's interesting, like my 15-year-old is really interested in tarot, which isn't something that I really do, and but we had some cards, and he was doing readings for members of the family and for people that he didn't know, and I just thought, gosh, you could set up a booth and make a living with this. You're doing so great. So it's there, but I don't know. It's not too mainstream where I live.
Yeah. So Sara, a lot of authors come to you to get advice on how to get their books out, but I'd love to hear your path of getting your books out. Was it fairly easy for you?
No, it wasn't very easy. So I'd been a writer since 3rd grade. I knew I was going to be an author. I knew this deeply in my bones. And then it came around the time that it was my 40th birthday, and I'm like, I don't have a book written or out or anything. I'm not even writing. And I decided at that point I would begin writing novels. And I wrote 3 novels over the next few years. And
That's a lot.
Yeah, and it was, I had like a writing office, and I quit one of the jobs I was doing. I really, really focused on this. So for 3 or 4 years, I'm writing novels, I'm sending them out, and no response whatsoever. And then I started going to all these writers' conferences, and really the message is like it's very, very difficult, it's very hard. And I just thought, you know what, I don't really care if it's hard. I'm going to be this novel writer. And this was before any of this intuition had happened to me or any of this opening. And then I wrote this novel, and I believed in it so fully, and it had a lot of spiritual elements, but again, it was before I became intuitive. And I began to send it out, and I heard this little idea of, you're going to need at least 40 rejections before you find the right person.
40.
Yeah, no, that's a lot of, and so it's interesting because the first novel I wrote actually got fairly far along, and like it got onto someone's desk, and I had an agent for a short time. But then this third novel that I believed in so much, rejection, up to 40, and then around the 43rd rejection was from this agent, Krista Gearing, and she said, I really can't sell your novel, but what you're doing interests me. Let's talk. And she became my agent. She winnowed through the straw or whatever to find me, and something about what I was doing was interesting. And then later, she was the one, a little bit later, who, after I'd begun to receive this channeled writing, out of nowhere, she wrote me and said, I've got the craziest idea for you. Would you ever like to write a book about channeling? Which I'd never heard of, we'd never talked of. So it was, if I hadn't started and done the repeated, I'm calling them the repeated failures of, years and years. I think it was 8 years of
That's good to hear. Yeah, 43 rejections.
Yeah, and then
most people would have closed up shop by then.
So like 3 novels and 40, no, more than 43 rejections for all of them. It just like, I just like knew, and it didn't end up turning out to be a novel after all. It was this nonfiction book. So, but sitting in the chair, doing the writing, working on the craft, if I hadn't done that, so I think for any author, if you want it, you just do the work. Just. Yeah.
Sarah, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
We could talk all day.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, really appreciate all you're doing. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Erin. Thanks.